At all times, it is good and well to remember that life is a gift and that you are the steward of that gift. You are the steward of that gift. Steward. So, all gifts. I was told that when I was young, just a boy. And I really didn't like other kids too much, so they took me to the psychologist. And she said, well, he's got a very high IQ, and he'll have to get used to it. Just born that way. Born that way. So here the attraction is to be negative. You don't want to let go of your position. You want to shrink and hide instead of being visible. You see yourself as worthless, affirm the gift of life. So whatever assets you're born with, so that was an asset that the priest said, it's a gift from God and it's your responsibility to utilize it for the good of mankind, life, others, etc. So now, instead of something to be like egoistic about, on the contrary, it was now a responsibility. So if you have musical ability, if you have athletic ability, if you have good looks, whatever you have, money, the capacity to be really super nasty, the world can use you. That's your gift. That's your gift. Like one guy said, you're a liar. He said, I'm the best in the world. You want to hire me? That was his gift, being glib. Yeah. All right. So if you see your assets then, instead of a source of pride or egotism, instead of feeding the ego, now you see it's a responsibility. Great wealth, it's a heavy-duty responsibility. I know people of great wealth, and frankly, their anxiety was how to best use it for mankind. They really were concerned about it. They built whole empires. Rockefeller, all these great foundations have a huge staff of people who just research the most propitious and beneficial way to use this for the good of mankind. People don't realize that rich people can, feel a great deal of responsibility, obligation to the world. To see it then as a gift, instead of yourself as worth, affirm that your life itself is a gift, and how can you best use it to be of service to yourself and others? As the Dalai Lama, the skinny Indian guy, Gandhi said, or was it the Dalai Lama? I don't know. One of those skinny foreigners, I don't know. Said it is not enough, to just seek enlightenment on your own and to pray for yourself. On the contrary, but to use whatever you can for the betterment of mankind in the meantime. So that's Mahayana rather than Hinayana, in which enlightenment is for the good of all. Yeah, they're the good of all. So your enlightenment, whatever talents you have, IQ, or genius, good looks, strength, physicality, the capacity for endurance, and the capacity to break through barriers, that's your gift. And so you give thanks for the gift, you're grateful. That keeps you humble. That way you can be rich, famous, handsome, and good looking like me, not have it go to your head. Well, it doesn't go to my head, does it? Yeah. However you are, you see the gift in it, and then you are thankful and acknowledge the gift. You say, thank you, God, for that disaster. Without it, I would never become humble enough to realize such and such. Therefore, no matter what happens in life, in due time, with reflection, wisdom will show you that it was something to be thankful for. I am thankful for every event that has ever occurred in my life, although at the time it was exquisite, painful, shameful, guilt-provoking, anxiety-provoking. But in retrospect, you'll see that every experience serves. It's because of your intention to see in what way that it serves that it's revealed to you in what way it serves. If nothing else, catastrophe shows that your life is totally dependent on God and not on the human ego, because the human ego in the middle of the desert with no water and the truck on fire is pretty powerless. Pretty powerless. So, all right. Those lessons. Here the view of shame is rigid, doesn't want to change it and become correctable, doesn't want to accept the gift of life, doesn't want to be responsible, that he is now the steward of his life and to stop wallowing in guilt and shame. It chooses to condemn itself rather than forgive. It seeks mortification rather than affirming self-worth. It likes to denigrate itself instead of honoring itself. You see, once you see your life as a gift from God, you have to honor that. I honor thy presence in me, O Lord, and I do give thanks. And thereby you sanctify your life. When you sanctify your life, you've already brought in a different spiritual context, and your experiences of life now become confirmatory of that reality. So instead of saying, I am a worthless worm, I don't go for wormism. Why? Because it's rejecting the gift of God. It's rejecting God's gift as life. I am a worthless worm. How can you stand me, God, etc. Is playing a game with divinity. Self-hatred instead of self-forgiveness. To be severe with yourself instead of benign. To be imbalanced and see both sides. Yeah? So we'll move to the next. And we'll get as far as we can within a few minutes. The next slide. The next slide, please. Okay. You blame yourself instead of the ego. To identify with the ego, you see, you can say the mind thought that or the ego thought that, but I myself don't know because the inner self is innocent. Instead of blaming the ego, you blame the self. You exaggerate your faults. You take a partial selective view. How could I have been so stupid? Instead of a balanced view, you see yourself as loser instead of corrected. You saw yourself as losing instead of learning a painful lesson. Yeah, you lost on that one, but you're not going to bet on that one again. The end of the road, this is it. We're at the end, it's all over. It doesn't see that loss is the beginning of the new. You cannot begin the new until you let go of the old. Here, of course, you see yourself unlovable, which is, again, a violation of truth and a negation of your worth as a child of God. Huh? Here you think the error is unforgivable. Here you see the error is a lesson. Lesion, now that's correct too. It is a lesion, eh? That was a hell of an error, I tell you. This was a hell of an error, I tell you. Hey, that's good, lesion. Anyway, anybody can spell it correctly. I mean, anyway. Narcissistic concern, here you're concerned for others. Instead of, oh, help me, it's how can I help you? And by helping them, you're the one that gets saved. Indulgence instead of letting go. Self is the center of life. Self is the participant in life. Focus on the self instead of others. I should have done this, and the reality is you were not able to. We'll go to the next slide. I should have this or should have that is dealing from the hypothetical. The hypothetical is always wrong. Anytime you hear your mind saying you should have or ought to have, negate it. There is no such thing. If you could have, you would have. The fact you didn't is because you couldn't. So you say at the time, I had a sore in my foot. I couldn't run any faster. If you could have run faster, you would have, right? Yeah. Guilt and shame, then, guilt and hate go together because it's judgmental, and you end up punishing either you or projecting it outwards. It's the refusal of mercy and the secret pleasure of guilt. See, self-punishment is a secret pleasure. Here you project your feelings instead of taking responsibility. Here you choose perception, and with the spirit you choose to see the essence. Guilt and hate is due to a rigid, narrow view instead of seeing both sides. You're walking in your brother's moccasins, then you can see what it would be like to walk in his moccasins. Here you see penance and self-indulgence as attractive instead of being of service to others. What good does it do others to say the rosary all morning? Tell me that. Other than you get sore knuckles. But how did you help the world? Of what service were you? Okay, you cling to your position instead of asking God for a miracle. Here you have a willingness to change. Here there's this attraction to act out instead of transcending. And here people enjoy, in guilt and hate, people enjoy being mean. And here they enjoy being gracious and selfless. To be small and mean with yourself or others. You see, it's being small and mean with yourself, yeah? Which is a denial of the divinity of life within you, your soul, your being. Unloving towards divinity.